everybody! One of the most common DM I get is, I'm short and want to get into riding. How should I start and what bikes do you recommend? Since I'm super detail oriented, so I'm answering those two questions in sections. So if you're not interested in listening to all of it, you can just go to the description box, look at the timestamp, and click to the sections that you're interested in. Before I begin answering, I would like to preface by saying I'm located in California, so my response is geared towards the laws there. Therefore, please do your own due diligence and research. Don't just blindly trust what I'm about to tell you in this video. On top of that, my recommendations are for new riders of all height, but if there's something I think new short riders should be aware of, I will notate it as well. So don't worry, I got you my shorties. Okay, let's begin. How should you start? First of all, the foundation of balancing a motorcycle during low speed is similar to balancing a bicycle. So if you don't know how to ride a bicycle, I suggest go learn that first. Build those balancing muscle memory, which will make learning how to ride a motorcycle a lot easier. If you already got that part down, then I highly recommend everybody to take your local motorcycle safety course, also known as the MSF course, which is a 2.5-day class taught by professional motorcycle instructors. In the class, there are two main portions. Number one, which is sitting in class and learning on-paper motorcycle knowledge, and number two, which is learning how to ride an actual motorcycle. Both portions will be tested, and to pass the class, you have to pass both. After passing the class, you'll receive a certificate for it. With the certificate, DMV will waive the riding portion of your motorcycle license test, so all there's left is for you to pass the written portion, which should be easy peasy since you had already passed the written test in the MSF course, right? Another thing is, because insurance companies take you passing the course as being a responsible, safe rider, so having the MSF certificate means you get discounts when you pay for your motorcycle insurance. And who doesn't like a good deal, right? I would like to add, each MSF course has different available motorcycles to provide their students. So if you're a shorty, I suggest calling in and asking if they have any short enough bikes available before paying for the class. For reference, I'm 4'9½", which equates to 146 centimeters with a 26-inch or 66 centimeters inseam, and was lucky enough that my class has a Kawasaki Eliminator 125, which has a low seat height of 26.6 inch, 681 millimeters. Not only that, since the seat is relatively narrow as well, which means it requires less leg length to reach the ground. So it is short enough for me to tippy-toe on both sides. If you're curious and would like to know the length of your inseam, measure the distance from your crotch to the floor when you're standing straight. Remember, to the floor and not just to your ankle. We're here to find out what bike seat height is short enough for you to ride, not here to find out what pants fits you, okay? Now onto what bikes do I recommend you to start with. First of all, what kind of bikes do you even like? There are sport bikes, naked bikes, dirt bikes, dual sports, cruisers, and many more. If your answer is anything but sport bikes, I am so sorry. I can't help you because I'm not familiar with those types of bikes at all. But if your answer is sport bikes, since I'm passionate about them, so I know a little bit, probably just enough to make this video. So like I said earlier, do your own research and not just blindly trust what I say. Sorry, I digress. Now back to our scheduled programming. So I have two groups, a total of 10 sport bikes to recommend you guys. Group A ranges from 250cc to 500cc and includes Kawasaki Ninja 300, Kawasaki Ninja 400, Kawasaki Ninja 500, Yamaha R3, Honda CBR 300R, Honda CBR 500R, and Suzuki GSX 250R. The main reasons why I think Group A is the best choice for new riders, especially new short riders who are 5'3" or 160 centimeters or below, it's because they are the shortest, lightest, most forgiving, and have the least aggressive riding positions. Let me expand a little bit on the 4 pros I just mentioned. So number 1, the shorter the seat height, the more you can reach the ground and have a lower chance of dropping the bike. It will allow new riders to feel more confident and comfortable when stopping and going, which confidence and comfortability are more important to riders than you think. Number 2, the lighter the bike, the less strength it requires to maneuver it, thus making learning how to ride easier. On top of that, let's say you drop your bike when nobody's around to help. It will also be easier to pick up a lighter bike by yourself. For reference, I'm about 95 pounds or 43 kgs and can pick up my Ninja 300 that weighs 385 pounds or 175 kgs, no problem. Granted, I do go to the gym regularly. However, I was still strong enough to pick it up on my own way before I started working out. So I'm sure you can't do this too. Side note, the best way of picking up a tipped over motorcycle is actually having your back face it. There are tons of YouTube videos teaching people how to do it properly without hurting themselves, and each rider has their own tips and tricks, so I suggest watching multiple tutorials from different content creators to gather as much information as possible. Number 3, the more forgiving the bike is, the greater the margin of error. A forgiving bike means it has softer responses despite given overly harsh or abrupt control inputs from the rider. This is especially important to new riders because mistakes are bound to be made during the learning process. I mean, who wants to have their bike fly off into the sunset because they accidentally throw a little too much, or have their bike do somersaults because they accidentally brake a little too hard, am I right? Number 4, the less aggressive riding position a bike has, the more neutral and upright the rider will be able to sit. With better ergonomics, the rider would feel more comfortable and has less of a toll on the body, especially the back, during rides. If you're curious to find out specifically what your riding position would look like on certain bikes, simply Google motorcycle ergonomics. The cycle-ergo.com website is for the ones who use imperial system, and the motonomics.com website is for the ones who use metric system. And remember, when measuring the length of your inseam for the website, measure from your crotch all the way to the floor when you're standing straight. Don't just stop measuring at your ankle, okay? Now on to my Group B recommendation. Group B ranges from 650cc to 700cc and includes Kawasaki Ninja 650, Yamaha R7, and Honda CBR 650R. The middleweight sport bikes in this group are taller, heavier, less forgiving, and more aggressive than Group A. They are not my first choice, but if you're a new rider who is above 5'3", which is 160 centimeters, would like to have and is responsible enough to handle a more powerful starter bike, Group B would be my recommendation. Some of you might be a little bit confused after listening to my Group B recommendations because you've been told one point in time that the higher the cc, the faster the bike goes. So how come I completely disregard the 600cc class bikes and recommend 3 bikes that are 650 to 700cc? Although the higher the cc could mean that it is faster in certain scenarios, but there are tons of exceptions. One of the exceptions I can think of on top of my head right now is the R6 and R7. You might think that because the R7 has 100 more cc than the R6, that means R7 goes faster. But that's not the case because they have different engines, and engine is a huge factor that determines how fast and how powerful the bike is. The R6 has an inline-4 engine, whereas the R7 has a parallel twin. And long story short, just know that the Yamaha R6 inline-4 engine is way more powerful and torquey than the Yamaha R7. So therefore, even though the R6 has 100 less cc's, but it goes way faster, okay? Which is why I did not recommend any 600cc class super sports. Instead, I recommended middleweight sport bikes that are the 3 that I mentioned in Group B. You might be wondering, there are tons of amazing motorcycles on the market. How come all my recommendations are Japanese brands? Some of the reasons are, number 1, they are reliable. For example, if you don't do an oil change for years, the bike can still run. However, I am most definitely not encouraging anyone to do that. Please, please, please regularly maintain and take good care of your bike. We don't want it to break down in the middle of the road out of nowhere and possibly get yourself into an accident now, are we? Number 2, they are sturdy. As a new rider, it is inevitable that you would drop your bike during the learning process, so having a sturdy bike is important. To add to that, one mod I highly recommend new riders to add to their bikes, which help prevent damages when dropping or during low speed accidents, is frame sliders. Although it doesn't prevent all the damages, it does protect your bike and help a lot. The brand I had is called Shogun, but I'm sure there are other good brands out there as well. Another mod that could help prevent damages to your bike is good aftermarket rear sets. Rear sets is basically the term referring to your foot pegs, gear shifter, and rear brake. Similar to frame sliders, aftermarket rear sets do not prevent 100% of the damages, but in my personal experience, they perform a lot better than frame sliders. The brand I have is Vortex. I also have heard good reviews on Woodcraft and Attack as well. Now, a good aftermarket rear sets are expensive, so if you're just starting to ride, you don't have to go all out and install this. Frame sliders should be good enough. A third mod is Crash Cage, which helps prevent close to all damages if you were to tip your bike over or be in a low speed accident. However, when it comes to higher speed accidents, I would say anything about 40 miles an hour or 64 kilometers per hour. Since the crash cage is sticking pretty far out from the bike, there is a possibility as your bike is sliding on the ground, the cage gets caught on the random cracks or dips in the road, which could end up flipping the bike and cause more damages. So maybe having a crash cage only when you started learning and doing low speed maneuvers, but I personally don't recommend still having it on if you're already riding on the main road, and definitely not if you're commuting on the freeway or highway. But like I mentioned earlier, frame sliders alone should be good. Number 3, I'm not saying it's going to be cheap, but generally speaking, parts and mods for Japanese bikes tend to be cheaper than European bikes. So whether you're trying to get new parts or new mods for maintenance purposes, damage replacement purposes, or upgrade purposes, Japanese bikes should be a better option for your wallet. Number 4, Japanese bikes are super common, which means there will be a good amount of supply on the market for you to purchase. And it also means prices for them won't be crazy high, therefore better for your wallet again. Are there exceptions? Yeah, like the Yamaha R6, my number one dream bike, because it is no longer in production, so with limited supply and crazy demand, the average price for one is kind of high right now. But the R6 is not one of my beginner bike recommendations anyways, so you do not need to worry about that at all. Number 5, piggybacking on the point above, because Japanese bikes are super common, it means there are tons of YouTube videos and forums available. This is especially useful if you're trying to learn how to maintain and work on your bike or come across an issue specific to your bike that you need help or answers to. Because chances are somebody else already had the same issue and found the answers to it, so all you need to do is learn from them. Or someone else already maintained and worked on the same bike, found a simpler way of doing things, and you can learn from them as well. An example would be, I learned from a YouTube video that if I used aluminum foil to cover specific parts of the bike during an engine oil and filter change, the cleanup process afterwards would be so much easier. These are the extremely useful tips and tricks that aren't included in the service nor owner's manuals and only available online with bikes that are common and have been around for some years. This should be the case for all my recommendations except the Kawasaki Ninja 500 because it is a brand new 2024 model. Since I mentioned 7 great bikes in Group A and 3 more in Group B, you may be wondering, then how do I narrow down to which one is the best for me? Honestly, you can't go wrong with any of the ones in Group A, but to know which is best for you, I highly recommend going to dealerships and sitting on them to see which one makes you feel the most comfortable. If they all feel the same, then you can choose based on the appearance or performance of the bike. Now attention my shorties, if all the bikes you have sat on in Group A still feel a little too tall for your comfort, just know that you do have options to lower the seat height, either by shaving some of the foam off the seat or by lowering the bike mechanically. Both methods have tons of YouTube tutorials available. However, Unless you have got the right tools and the existing general automotive mechanical knowledge, I highly suggest bringing your bike to a shop and having it lowered by a professional. And to the ones that are doing it yourselves, remember not to lower the front only. Always do front and back or only back. Don't forget to adjust the chain slack and fine tune the suspension and or preload after lowering it. Also, side note, lowering the bike mechanically does affect its overall performance. However, if you're only planning to street ride, you should be fine. Plus, you can always raise it back to stock height down the road if you want, or keep it lowered, which is totally fine as well. Honestly, do whatever you need to make yourself feel most comfortable and confident when riding. Lastly, since I've lowered my bike and raised it back to stock height, I've also gotten quite a few DMs asking about that as well. Therefore, I do plan on making a video dedicated to pros and cons of lowering a bike, why did I lower it and then raise it back up, will I ever lower a bike again in the future, and do I recommend you to lower it? That's it, bye! Well, thank you for staying to the end. Here are the bloopers. Enjoy. Ayy, ayo, ayo! You to start with. Pause. Oh my god, water break. Japanese bikes are so... I need water break, oh my god. Oh my god. How many water did I drink? What are these? You know what this setup gives off? Unqualified, uneducated, fake professor. Honestly, I'm surprised that my cat and my dog didn't come bother me. Crazy! Where are they? Oh my god, I lost my voice. How long was this video? I hope the Insta360 got all the footage, or else I will redo it.